My daughters burned his memory literally. Now, the ashes of my late husband's legacy smolder in my heart, and I'm done playing the saint. Eleanor Grayson stood in the kitchen of her late husband Thomas's sprawling Victorian mansion, her trembling hands clutching a chipped teacup. At 68, her silver hair framed a face carved with lines of love and loss. The house, with its creaking floors and towering windows, was more than a home. It was Thomas's dream, his pride, the place where he'd raised their daughters, Claire and Vanessa. Despite their growing resentment toward him, they called him controlling, cold, a man who valued his work over family. Eleanor knew better. Thomas had been a provider, a dreamer, a man who built this house brick by brick with his own hands, pouring his soul into every detail. But Claire and Vanessa never saw that. They saw only his absences, his stern rules, his unyielding expectations. And when he died 2 years ago, their bitterness didn't fade. It festered. Eleanor had let them stay, rent-free, in his house. She told herself it was for love, for family, for the hope that one day they'd understand the man she'd loved for 40 years. Claire, 32, sharp-tongued and ambitious, had moved back in after a failed startup left her broke. Vanessa, 29, quieter but no less resentful, came with her toddler son, Max, after her marriage fell apart. The mansion was big enough for all of them, Eleanor thought, big enough to hold their grief, their anger, their fragile bonds. She was wrong. The trouble started small. Claire would roll her eyes when Eleanor mentioned Thomas's name, dismissing his memory with a wave of her hand. He was never here for us. Mom, why do you keep defending him? Vanessa was subtler, her silence cutting deeper than words. She'd change the subject or leave the room when Eleanor tried to share stories of Thomas's kindness, how he'd worked late to pay for their dance lessons, their college, their dreams. The girls didn't want to hear it. They wanted to erase him. Eleanor tried to bridge the gap. She cooked their favorite meals, babysat Max, and ignored the way they left dishes in the sink or blasted music through Thomas's study, where his old typewriter still sat, untouched. She told herself they were hurting, that time would heal them, but time only sharpened their edges. Claire started selling Thomas's belongings, his vintage watches, his leather-bound books, his tools, claiming they were just clutter. Vanessa didn't stop her. Eleanor found out when a neighbor mentioned seeing Thomas's favorite armchair at a garage sale. Her heart cracked, but she said nothing. She wanted peace. She wanted her daughters. Then came the fire. It was a chilly October night, the kind where the wind howled through the mansion's eaves like a warning. Eleanor had gone to bed early, exhausted from a day of chasing Max and dodging Claire's barbed comments. She woke to the smell of smoke and the crackle of flames. Heart pounding, she stumbled downstairs to find Claire and Vanessa in the backyard, standing over a metal barrel. Inside, flames devoured a pile of Thomas's things, his journals, his letters, his old flannel shirts. The glow lit their faces. Claire's expression defiant. Vanessa's uneasy but complicit. Max slept in Vanessa's arms, oblivious to the destruction. "What are you doing?" Eleanor's voice was a raw whisper, barely audible over the fire's roar. Claire turned, her eyes hard. "We're done living in his shadow. Mom, this is our house now." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Eleanor's gaze. "It's just stuff, Mom. It doesn't mean anything." Eleanor's knees buckled. She sank to the grass, the cold seeping into her bones. Those weren't just things. They were Thomas's words, his thoughts, his love. The journals held his dreams for the girls, his regrets, his apologies they'd never read. The shirts carried his scent, the one she'd clung to in the months after his death. And they'd burned it all, like it was trash. The next morning, Eleanor sat at the kitchen table, staring at the ashes in the barrel outside. Her grief was a living thing, clawing at her chest, but something else stirred too anger. She'd given them everything: her home, her patience, her silence, and they'd taken a match to her heart. She thought of Thomas, his calloused hands, his quiet sacrifices. He didn't deserve this. Neither did she. Claire breezed into the kitchen, scrolling on her phone. Morning. Mom. You okay? You look rough. Eleanor's voice was steady, colder than she'd ever heard it. You burned his things. Claire shrugged. We needed space. You can't keep hoarding his junk forever. His junk. Eleanor's hands shook. Those were his journals, his letters to me, his life. Claire rolled her eyes. He wasn't a saint. Mom, he was a workaholic who ignored us. You're the only one who cares about his stuff. Vanessa entered, Max on her hip, and froze at the tension. Mom, we didn't mean to upset you. We thought it'd help you move on. Move on, Eleanor stood it, her voice rising. You think burning your father's memory helps me? You think living here, eating my food, using his home, gives you the right to erase him? Claire scoffed. We're not erasing him. We're living our lives. You should try it. The words hit like a slap. Eleanor saw it then, their entitlement, their indifference. They'd never loved Thomas, and now they were spitting on her love for him. She'd let them stay, hoping they'd change, but they'd only grown bolder, more careless. She thought of the house, Thomas's legacy, and the choice she'd been avoiding. I want you out, she said quietly. Claire laughed, thinking it was a bluff. What? You heard me. Both of you. Pack your things and leave. Vanessa's eyes widened. Mom, you can't mean that. Where will we go? I have Max. You should have thought of that before you burned your father's memory. Eleanor's voice was steel. This is his house. You don't respect it. You don't respect me. You're done here. The days that followed were a storm of arguments, tears, and slammed doors. Claire called Eleanor selfish, ungrateful, dramatic. Vanessa pleaded, citing Max's needs, but Eleanor held firm. She'd spent years bending, breaking, sacrificing for her daughters. No more. She helped Vanessa find a small apartment and gave her some money to start over, but the mansion was no longer theirs. Claire left in a huff, vowing never to speak to Eleanor again. Vanessa left quietly, her eyes red but her lips sealed. The house felt emptier without them, but Eleanor found a strange peace in the silence. She walked through the rooms, touching Thomas's typewriter, his old records, the things they hadn't destroyed. She started writing again, something she hadn't done since Thomas died. She wrote about him, about their love, about the daughters who'd broken her heart. The words poured out, raw and honest, filling the void they'd left. Months passed. Vanessa called sometimes, tentative, asking about Eleanor's health. Claire didn't. Eleanor heard through a friend that Claire was living with a new boyfriend, still chasing dreams she couldn't fund. Vanessa was working, raising Max, piecing her life together. Eleanor missed them, missed Max's laughter, Vanessa's shy smiles, even Claire's fire. But she didn't regret her choice. She'd protected Thomas's memory, and in doing so, she'd reclaimed her own strength. One evening, as Eleanor sat in Thomas's study, a letter arrived. It was from Vanessa, handwritten, the first she'd sent since moving out. I'm sorry, it began. I didn't understand what Dad meant to you. I didn't want to. I was wrong. She wrote about Max, about her job, about the guilt that kept her awake. She didn't ask to come back, but she asked for forgiveness. Eleanor read it twice, tears blurring the words. She didn't know if she could forgive not yet, but the letter was a start. Claire's silence lingered, a wound that might never heal. But Eleanor wasn't waiting anymore. She'd spent too long living for others, hoping they'd see what she saw in Thomas. Now, she lived for herself, for the man whose love still warmed the walls of this house, for the life they'd built together. The mansion stood as it always had, weathered but strong, a testament to love and loss. Eleanor walked its halls, no longer haunted by her daughter's anger or her own guilt. She'd made her choice, and it was hers alone. What would you do if you were Eleanor? Was she right to cast her daughters out, or did her love for her late husband blind her to their needs? Share your thoughts on family, loyalty, and the cost of holding on or letting go.